Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Tim Jackson with Berkshire Hathaway, and
Renee Candler, Root Mortgage.
Renee. What are we smoking on today?
Oh my goodness, we got the Romeo and Julieta 1875 Bully. Delicious, classic cigar. So I'm excited to be smoking this with you.
So it's a new year, 2023. I keep putting 2022 in contracts.
Do you really?
Yeah, I'm a man of habit.
Everybody heard that, right? He's putting 2022 in contracts. That was in plural. That's wonderful news.
Yeah, multiple contracts, but yeah, I just always got to remind myself at that new year to put that 3 at the end and not the 2.
Well, I am hopeful that you, your family, have a 2023 filled with clarity, hope, and love. And everyone that's watching this video, I wish the same for all of you, because we need more love in this world. And wouldn't it be nice to have a clear mind? And that's kind of what we want to talk about, right? Not only how do we want to start this new year, but how do we want to establish our goals, and how clear are we with them? So this is going to be an exciting, we want to go with a shorter video, right?
Yeah. We're not going to be, it won't be the usual 1 hour market update and talking about, we're going to talk a little bit more about ourselves, our background, and maybe our aspirations for this year.
So start with you, Tim. What are some goals that you set for yourself this year?
Yeah. Well, on the personal side, I want to read, it's going to come out to about 2 books a month. That's 24 books for the year. If I can read 3 books a month, that's great, but I'm going to try to stick with 2. I'm in a one-on-one reading group. We just finished a 1,200-page book. That thing was a beast. And then I'm in a reading club that I started, and we're reading through Dante's Inferno right now.
Oh my goodness, that's not an easy read.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So, and then there's a couple other book clubs that, there's one that started during the pandemic that I was an English major, so there's some old English major colleagues that do a book discussion on Zoom, and I've kind of been tapping in and out of that depending on what's going on in my life.
Okay.
So that's the personal goal. And then business goals. I mean, last year I wanted to sell 24 homes, and I sold I sold 19 homes, and I wanted to hit 10 million in volume, and I hit 9.4.
Good.
So I think those lofty goals set me up for success. And this year, I want to do 36 homes, three sales a month, and 15 million in volume. And I've already got four transactions on the board, so that's already ahead of the curve for 3 months. What are your goals for 2023?
Man, I was in education for 18 years, and you know this, and so the data piece to it is something that I love. In fact, it's not necessarily hitting the goals. You want to hit them, but when you establish goals, what you do is you want to meet them. And so internally, you create this drive within you and within your partners to get to that lofty goal, or to get to the goal, just to begin with. So it's really cool to hear that. I'll go the opposite direction you did. Professionally, I set up the same goal. I would love to see 3 closed loans. I'd love to support 3 families a month in getting into their home. That would be great. So that would put us at around 36 loans for 2023, and that would be approximately 40, just under 40 million in production. And so that would be great. I was able so far to close 1, and it was it was more than satisfying. It was a family that was supporting each other. Aspiration alert. I would love to be able to help my kids and their family into a home. Wouldn't that be
That'd
a
be
great
amazing.
position in
Yeah.
life? And that's what I was able to. I was able to help support this family, support their family into a home, and that just felt so good. Personally, I would love to continue that family trend. I want to, little by little, since I would say 2020, I've been figuring out the balance, or trying to figure out the balance of being at home and to be present mainly with my family, with my wife. And that's a goal that I want to have. It's not a quantifiable goal. It's more quality, and I think I'll see whether or not I can do that based on how my wife responds, based on how my kids respond.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the transition that I've been seeing over the last 3 years. And so to be able to continue to do that this year, I think is optimal for me.
Well, it's an industry where you can work 70 hours one week, where you got a lot going on and you need to keep on top of a lot of different transactions. And then some weeks just naturally, because you put so much in those other weeks, that you can take it easy, and maybe you've got a 20 or 30 hour week where you're at home with the kids, you're taking them to school, you're doing a lot more of the, just the dad life. And I've seen that in my own life too, where there's times where I feel like, oh wow, I haven't been home a lot. Like, I've been out the door and back in and out the door again. But those luckily only happen in short bursts, and for the most part I can begin controlling the tempo as my business grows.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a school principal, one of the key pieces was that school schedule, that main schedule, right? And whatever's important, however you prioritize things, that's how you create the schedule, so that the other pieces don't get in the way. And it's just what I'm thinking now when I hear that. How am I prioritizing my family within the schedule so that those pieces are first? That's good. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Well, let's get a little bit into who we are as people. I mean, we've talked a lot about, the 5 W's of who, what, when, where, and how to buy a home and why. But what we haven't spoken, maybe we've hinted at it or spoken a little bit about it, but is like who we are as people. Like, if you guys you're watching this video and you're like, wow, I've heard them speak a lot about homes and numbers and prices and predictions, but who is Renee Candler and who is Tim Jackson, and who are they as people? Where are they from? Where you were born in Chicago, right?
No, I was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico.
Okay.
In the Caribbean.
See, I don't even know.
Yeah, I have a Cuban father, Puerto Rican mother. My dad left Cuba as a young kid. I think he was 12 years old, and he went to Spain to nobody. Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine that I have a 12-year-old. So imagine how his family must have felt with what was going on in Cuba at the time, where they felt that was
this
the
the 60s?
best alternative. Yes.
So the Bay of Pigs, I mean, this is the little I know about Cuban history. It was 63 was the Bay of Pigs, right?
Oh, around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then Castro and...
Yeah, Castro was right. He passed away. Was a very charismatic figure, and so he knew what to say in order to get the popular vote, and he got in. And he did what he did because of whatever reasons, and there's history to show why he did what he did. And it's unfortunate that such a beautiful island has experienced what they have experienced. So he leaves Cuba, goes to Puerto Rico, meets my mom. And unfortunately, that relationship just didn't work out. Good man, just wasn't ready to be a dad or a husband. And my mom had her father in Chicago. He, at that time, I think was either starting his business or getting close to. And my mom, and her 2 sisters actually all kind of moved at the same time. And so I was raised in the city of Chicago from a little baby, right? I think I was probably 1. When my mom and I moved over there. So I was raised in this very urban area. Just imagine a Latino male being raised by a single parent mom in a super metropolis as Chicago. And I mean, I think Chicago has a very negative perception in this country. And I had a great youth. But it feels wonderful to be able to break some of those stereotypes and to break what the stats say about a young male being raised by his mom.
Well, I didn't realize we had quite a bit in common. I mean, there's multiple things that you were saying when you were talking about your background that I actually fairly similar. Like, I was born in London but moved to Africa. First year of my life was spent in what we'd call a third world country. And then when I got back, intermittently, I was raised by a single mom until I was about 6 years old. In London, so a huge city, and then Bournemouth in southern England as well. But I also like that another connection I feel like we both have is your dad being from Cuba. I've got a lot of family from southern Central Africa, and that's huge tobacco farm. So I really like kind of the
Yeah.
tobacco heritage, kind of
Oh,
the
yeah.
closer to the equator. So we I think that might be what draws us to cigars.
I think so. And my first cigar was with my dad in this beautiful backdrop of what is Puerto Rico, right? It's just a tropical, beautiful place. The people are warm. The outside is hot, but it's tolerable. You know what I mean? Because the beauty makes it tolerable. And so here I am sitting with my dad and getting to know him as a person as I'm older, smoking a really good cigar.
Nice.
And what I learned about a cigar is I love the cigar, I do. But what I love more is the conversation. The ability to be with someone. You're committing time. What, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours to somebody?
Yeah,
And that's what I love about the cigar. It brings people together.
I agree there. Yeah, I mean, my grandpa owned it still does. I mean, he passed away and my granny took it over, but hundreds of acres of tobacco plants. I mean, in Zambia, they don't quite have them for cigars, they're more for cigarettes, but just having that family connection of I would always come home, when I was at my grandpa's farm, he would come off the farm and he would be smoking his pipe tobacco and playing a game of solitaire. And that was how I always remembered my grandpa. And so I didn't smoke either until actually after he passed away. I had this sudden urge of like, I really want to smoke, but it wasn't like this draw to the tobacco itself. It was a draw to something else, kind of this
To him.
to him and to that connection. So I can definitely resonate with that.
So here we are now as adults, right? From childhood to adult, there's been so much that has happened that kind of explains why we tick, right? Our experiences is what gives us perspective, and our responses as a result of those experiences is what kind of solidifies the way that we perceive the world. So why is it that someone would choose you as a realtor? What is it that you think you bring to the table that someone else might not?
Yeah. I mean, I think I do have that bird's eye view of the world. And it's not just being born in London or spending time in central southern Africa. I think also just being an English major, I've read quite a few books, and so I feel like, and a lot of times I just like engaging with different people from different walks of life. Because really, the thing about a real estate agent is you're taking somebody on as a client, and so that fiduciary relationship is you're very much their interests are your own, and so I feel like understanding people from a huge swath of backgrounds and taking their passion and their reason for what makes them tick, who they are, and understanding that, and actually I think listening and just working for them, like putting my feet in their shoes and really casting their vision of what they want is what I feel like I do really well. It might not be per se different, but it's what makes me passionate about doing real estate. It's not the numbers as much as I love. Can I crack this door open a little bit? It's not as much as I love the numbers, I love the data. I love everything about what makes real estate what it is. But I think the biggest thing is just being able to take on each and every client and giving them that 5-star experience and not just treating it like another transaction. I mean, every client's...
Yeah, in order to do that, you have to be a good listener. And that means you speak probably less than how much you listen. You have to be patient.
Yeah.
Because if you want to empathize and understand the person in front of you, those skills are very important in order for you to find the options that they're looking for.
Yeah.
That's great.
And speaking less than I listen is definitely a lesson that I'm slowly adapting to, but because I do like to talk as well.
Yeah, you and me both. Oh my goodness, I just realize over and over again, I think life has a way of teaching you, right? Time is the best teacher, that love is the most important piece.
Yeah.
And love is patient, love is kind, love is putting the person in front of you over yourself.
Yeah. Well, Renee, what is it that sets you apart as a loan officer? I mean, or a mortgage advisor, I should say. Like, what sets you apart from the crowd?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I guess I have a very different set of experiences, I think, right? I was in education for 18 years. I think me being a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, gives me a vast array of experiences from working with people of all different types of life, to being able to bring forth the information, arming people with knowledge so that they can make good decisions. I I am someone that wants to present the person in front of me, especially in this industry, with the system. This is how the system works. This is the information. These are the different types of programs, if it's a loan program, or these are the options. And what does it mean? All the why behind it. I use my educational background to be able to show that information. And then, as a principal who worked with trying to bring all these different groups of people together within the same community and have the arrows form in the right direction or in the same direction, I'm able to use my soft skills to either be as concise as needed or to be as expressive as needed in explaining something. I enjoy most when someone says, I got it. All right, cool, this is what I want to do. Because that tells me I've given them enough information for them to make the decision that's best for them and their family.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I feel like what brings us, another similarity between us, is that public service aspect of being in the military and climbing up the ranks to a staff sergeant, NCO, is that it's taught me not only to be a hard charger, somebody that needs a voice in potentially dangerous situation, or at times you've got to lead a group of soldiers. At other times, I mean, one of the key aspects of military service and what we're taught as leaders is selfless service. And so always putting the needs of your soldiers above your own. So you're out in the field and, you see that one of your newer guys doesn't have the supplies or maybe he's looking a little bit down. I mean, it's not always fun to be in the desert for 3 weeks.
Right.
And so you're always putting the needs of your soldiers first. And that's something that I definitely feel like I bring to the real estate game, and I've seen that in yourself as well, in that when we're talking with a client on the phone or in person, I've definitely seen that you're always pushing to make their needs the forefront, and that you're very good at being diligent about addressing that client's needs.
Yeah, that's why I love working with you, because you see the same thing, right? This is an expensive transaction. Expensive in the sense that I'm not going to go buy a mattress for $1,000, whatever a mattress costs, right? I'm going to go buy a home that's probably $200,000 and up.
Yeah.
Especially in the Portland metro area, where, yet again, even though we have these interest rates that are starting to come down, even though inflation was at its peak this past July in 2022, it's starting to come down. In December of 2022, in comparison to December of 2021, home values went up. Average 7% higher than the year before. Median 6% higher than the year before. So we have homes that are still retaining value. We have an investment that's still making money. So why don't we take the time to understand the person in front of us so that we help support them in what can be a very scary transaction?
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, it is one of the only transactions that would be smart to make a 30-year payment on, because it's one of those only things in the long term that gives you that return. So you're totally right. It's a huge $500,000 on average transaction that's happening.
That's right.
The biggest thing that somebody owns most of the time.
And I still believe to this day it is the wisest investment someone can make. That's my personal opinion. I know that there are other ways to invest your money and to make money. But man, when I saw the power of buying, renting it out after I owned another property, buying, flipping, making money, being able to provide a home to someone, whether I was acting as a landlord or I was acting as a person that helped make and beautify a home. And to have that extra cash on the side to build up a savings account as a result of property, investing in property, to be able to jump out of a position that I loved, that was endearing to me, that was slowly killing me and consuming me, to be able to see that and to jump out of it and feel comfortable, at least for a time being, until I found something else to do. I didn't realize the power of property, of real estate. And I didn't even get into mortgages thinking of that. It was as a result of that that got me into mortgages, that helped me see, oh my goodness, why aren't more people investing in property?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they're saying that with 2023, I mean, we've just hit a new year, and I was just reading an article that we've hit kind of a blank slate with home prices kind of letting out some air. Obviously, February of 22 was where we hit a probably the peak of the market as far as
March, April, May was the peak of 2022, where we saw homes that were being purchased at 50,000, 75,000 over list price.
Yeah, it was nuts. And I think what we're seeing now is less of a, because I mean, you could call it a deflation, you could call it a come down, but we're just not seeing those over asking price offers. We're seeing closer to asking price,
even under list price.
And sometimes we're seeing 10 to 15,000 under or closing costs taken care of.
Right.
So just reading this article, they were saying that basically 23 is a blank slate. With inflation and interest rates, we've kind of hit the reset button, and now we're going to be seeing this next year as an opportunity to take advantage of, this adjustment that's happened. We've seen it in the last 6 months of this kind of slow letting out the air.
What it seemed, I mean, just reviewing the RMLS data from the Portland metro area, what it looks like is a mirroring, at least when we look at inflation in our country. We were at around 9.1% in July, right?
Yeah, it was crazy.
And so were the home values, and that's when we saw them skyrocketing up. So it's as if the mirroring of inflation in our country matched these prices that we saw in our homes. And now, as inflation is coming down, the values of the homes, I wouldn't say that they are coming down. They are. They're not being purchased as the inflation matched.
Right.
So instead, we're starting to see home values as what they were in, what was that date? Was it June of 2020? July of 2020?
Where it's matching, it's matching very close to the end of 2020 to the beginning of 2021.
Yes.
Yes. Because I can even remember somebody purchased a home with me in October of 2020 with the team I was working on at the time, and they ended up selling with me 6 months later for personal reasons. So you don't normally buy and sell a home in 6 months, and they bought it for $390 and sold it for $450 in the matter of under 6 months.
Check that out.
And so that was, what are you talking, like it was about a 15% increase in price in the matter of 6 months, which was astronomically nuts.
Yeah, I have been intrigued and surprised in a lot that I have seen, simply because it was new to me, right? I became a mortgage advisor in 2021, and so as someone who loves data, I just tried to study patterns, and there were no patterns to study in 2021 because it was new. What was happening was new historically in this country, and yet as not chaotic, although it felt chaotic in regards to the market of rates, as inconsistent as it was throughout 2021, we're still seeing home values keeping steady.
Yeah.
And that I don't know, that to me just means why aren't more people investing into homes? We are seeing true value
Yeah.
in that market.
Well, and I think one thing to look out for in this new year is that we saw the biggest rise in interest rates, and I want to say 40 since the 80s. 2022 was we doubled our interest rates, more than doubled.
Well, we came into the new year from December 2020 to January 20. No, I'm sorry, from December 21 to January 22 at around 3%. It was
Yeah.
like 3.125.
Yeah.
And by February, we were in the fours. By March, we were already in the fives. It was
Yeah.
just a steep climb
And
up.
we saw we were starting to flirt with 7. I mean, we're back down to high 5s, low 6s, I've heard.
Yeah. So today's Monday, Martin Luther King Day, and the market when it closed on Friday was around 6%. 30-year fixed conventional.
So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we finish this year, 2023 into 2024. I think we could see 5%. It's
Yeah.
not implausible, and I also think it's going to be a good time to be looking out for. Had you purchased at a 6.5, even 7% interest rate, looking at that refinance, especially if inflation really starts going down, then the Feds are going to lay off of hiking interest rates. It's going to be a great time to speak with Renee, and just say, hey, will I save, and how much will I save if I refinance? And it's also a great time to look into, because I know a lot of people were sitting on the sidelines when interest rates were low, because there was so much competition in the market, and now there's some people sitting on the sidelines because, I mean, understandably so, they don't want to be spending $4,000 a month on a $550,000 home, for example. That's, obviously rough numbers, but these interest rates are keeping some people on the sidelines. But what's exciting is that as we see the inflation and all this data kind of slowly cool down, and I talk about the blank slate, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people to keep their fingers on the market and say, all right, when is the right time to jump? And it's really about where are you at, and what's the individual story, like what are you hoping to accomplish, and what do you want the numbers to look like? Because we can go over the numbers with you and say, hey, this is a great time to do it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm working with a client right now who just went into contract for a home at $395,000. So here's just some simple math. Putting 5% down, they're looking at a $2,800 a month mortgage payment. So that's doable than what it was just a few months ago. And the biggest learning that I have, and this is just me, this is my opinion, I believe the conversation on interest rate is a distraction. The true added value is the ownership of property in this country. And so how is it that we work with buyers in understanding that the interest rate market is cyclical? It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. When you are able to buy, if you're willing to buy, and you have the means to buy. This is the best time to buy. We are able to get into contracts with people under list price and with seller concessions to help pay off closing costs. This is the opportune time to buy for someone that's interested and wondering if I should buy.
Yeah.
Buyer sentiment is low because of interest rates, and yet the rich get richer. That's why I believe the interest rate conversation is a distraction.
Yeah. And I just heard maybe a little bit of a positive encouragement is that for the first time in quite a few months, the buyer sentiment's actually gone up. So in December, 18% of people nationwide said it was a good time to buy a home, and now it's 21%. So you can actually see that, and I've seen kind of word on the street as well as just I've seen a few homes go under contract with multiple offers now. I see it starting to warm back up. People are starting to re-engage. People are starting to kind of, I think the market.
The reality is set. Right?
Yeah, the reality's set, and I think there was that shove of like that instant like, whoa, what's going on? There's a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
And now people are kind of slowly coming back in and saying, all right, let's do something. And you said about the unpredictability of what the market was doing. It's totally true, and there's still a little bit of a unpredictability, a little bit of the ups and downs. We're still kind of in a little bit of the aftershocks, but I think as these aftershocks get less and less severe, I guess you could say, I think it's going to start warming, thawing out, warming back up. I think the spring market's going to be
It's gonna be back to being as competitive as it once was. This is going to be a year of consistency. That's going to be the main theme when it comes to our market. The Fed has been responding appropriately in the eyes of the bankers.
Yeah.
The inflation rate continues to go down. It was at 6.4% just last week in comparison to 6.7, 7.1 the month before.
Yeah.
So the Fed response is doing what it is that they wanted it to do. And the question is going to be how well are they going to have that soft landing, which is very difficult.
And they wanted people to stop spending money.
Yeah,
they came out and said stop spending money. Yeah, that's what they wanted to happen.
Yeah, there was a lot of intention behind it. The bankers are seeing that the Fed is responding the way that they would want the Fed to respond, based on what money's worth and how we want our money to continue to be worth. And so homes are getting the good out of it right now. We're also seeing that inventory is low. Inventory went down in the month of December. Less homes to buy, and people are starting to want to buy again because they're starting to see that you're going to get a deal in buying in this market.
Yeah.
So the competition is going to be there. It makes sense for anyone that's ready to buy to work with a professional that will provide them with either the data or the options to be able to make an informed decision.
Yeah. We went from 2.7 months down to 2.3 in December. Now, I will say that historically, inventory always does go down in December just because people pull their homes off for the holidays. And I think as we go into spring, people are going to react to the spring market. Sellers are going to say this is the time to list. So I think we are going to start seeing a little bit more. We're probably going to see more homes to the market, but I think there's a chance that we could see less time on market because we're starting to flirt with 50 days on market average, and I think that might come down in the spring as the market thaws out. But just very quickly, I wanted to hit on what you were saying about the market being unpredictable. I think there is. And I think we all know the reason it's so unpredictable. I guess the underlying thing that's causing all of it is just like what we're talking about, inventory. There's so little homes on the market that I think buyer sentiment's one thing. Like when something's in and it's trendy and it's cool. Like last year with interest rates, it was cool and it was trendy to buy a home and everybody had this fear of missing out. But I think the underlying thing that's going to continue driving this market is, even before the pandemic hit in February of 2020, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae did this study that it was Oregon specifically being the eye of the inventory storm. Oregon was a 9.7% deficit of homes needed. We needed to have almost 10% more homes than we did. And that was before the pandemic, before supply chain issues.
The pandemic exacerbated what it is that people started to see, which is the millennials started to realize we need to have our home.
Yeah.
And that, I think, coupled with what you just said, drove such masses into wanting to buy home. It was the perfect storm. You had interest rates really low. You had people stuck in home, realizing how important it was to have your own space and not having to rely on a landlord. And you saw that a lot of jobs, employers, said you can work from home.
Yeah.
And so you had this huge influx in the desire to buy.
Yeah. And now I'm seeing some signs that are going to be, I won't say painful in the long term, but there's signs that this is not going to just get swept under the rug and suddenly disappear because interest rates are higher or the buyer sentiment's lower or inflation's going up. But I've noticed that, not just noticed, I've heard from builders and even in nationwide reports, builders are not building, they're pulling out. D.R. Horton had this big development in Woodburn, and they were finishing off selling the last of the homes and saying we're not building anymore because a builder needs, like we were saying, predictability. And right now,
when they want to hit their margins.
Yep. And when it costs so much, it costs like six figures just to start a single development. So they develop all of this, and they've got this huge head-up cost of just getting things going. And in a market where the prices are adjusting and things are less predictable, you do tend to have builders even the small mom and pop shops that build, they tend to kind of pull back and say let's not develop yet. So I think we're going to see a delayed reaction of. I don't think we'll ever see 2021 and early 22 again. At least I hope we don't, because it's not a healthy market. But I do think this inventory story isn't a story that's going to go away.
It's not going to go away, especially when it's so difficult to build. And I think that's the piece that a lot of us don't know. You have to acquire the land. You have to develop the land. You have to get permits to do any of that work, which takes time and high costs, actually, just to get the permits.
Yeah.
Then as you develop, you start building different phases of homes. You have to sell the homes to continue next phases. And you have to hit those margins in order to pay, especially in a national company like D.R. Horton, all of your employees, which is more than just the construction and the sales side. There's a lot of other pieces to it.
Yeah.
So I hope to see the builders begin building this year, is what my hope is, because we're going to come back to a market where people are going to want to buy again.
Yeah. Well, I just did an open house on Saturday for a builder that just did 7 homes in a community. But because they were, it's not a rack and stack huge development, just 7 homes. They put a lot of attention to detail in the quality of the build. You can see it in a lot of the small details. I've walked through a lot of Lennar, a lot of D.R. Horton homes, a lot of new construction. So just speaking on new construction really quickly, I think there are certain builders as well that, should you be looking at new construction, there's a difference between the builders as well. Just while we're hitting on the new construction though.
And as you can see, we care about this. We care about the process as a whole. Mm-hmm. We care about finding what our clients are looking for. And we have the knowledge to help support some of those options and to provide options. And even more importantly, we have not just the wherewithal, but the desire to help our clients get their families into a home.
Yeah. Well, Renee, it was good talking, and we will see you guys next month. And if your plans are to buy, sell, invest in 2023, whether that be a single family home, your first home, a duplex, whatever it may be, Renee and I would love to talk with you guys. Just go over not only the numbers, but your story, what you're trying to accomplish. You know, it could be an old Victorian 1900s home. It could be a brand new development by D.R. Horton. We've both seen them all, and we can definitely help approach what you're trying to accomplish in a manner that, like we both said, we love to put the client first and put ourselves in your shoes so we can best accomplish what you're trying to do.
So here's to a year filled with clarity, an opportunity to hit your goals, and more importantly, surrounded by love. Happy 2023.
Happy 2023, guys.